You are the main character in your life. You need to exude main character energy when it comes to how you're spending your time and who you're spending your time with.
Welcome to the Rich Auntie Podcast. Your host, Kia Valentine, will guide you on your journey to financial freedom, business success, and a luxurious lifestyle. Get ready for expert tips, inspiring stories, and practical advice to help you live your richest life. Let's dive in.
Welcome to another enlightening episode of the Rich Auntie Podcast. I'm your host and favorite Rich Auntie, Kia Valentine. And today we're going to explore a topic that is essential for personal and professional success: mastering the art of healthy boundaries. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a professional, or someone navigating personal relationships, setting healthy boundaries and maintaining them are key to protecting your time, your energy, and your peace. So, in today's episode, we are going to cover what are boundaries, why they're important, how to establish them effectively, and practical tips to ensure that they're respected. So, let's get started on this journey and transform the way you approach boundaries in your life. First, let's talk about what are boundaries. Boundaries are the guidelines, the rules, and the limits that we set for ourselves when we're in a relationship and when we interact with other people. It's also the guidelines and rules that we set for ourselves in a relationship with ourselves. And so it's basically what we're willing to accept and what we're not willing to accept. There are many different types of boundaries. We have physical boundaries, emotional, mental, also workplace boundaries, personal relationship boundaries. It's the ones that we have with our family members, our friends, and also our significant other. So there are many different types of boundaries. I'm not going to go into depth in any of these today, but in future episodes, we're definitely going to cover a few of these. So let's talk about why boundaries are important. They're important for many different reasons, and some of those reasons are they protect our overall well-being, our emotional, mental, and physical state. Also, it boosts our confidence and our self-esteem. It helps us prevent burnout, and it also enhances our relationships. So we can definitely see why it's important and why it's necessary to have boundaries in our lives. Setting boundaries are easier said than done. For some people, it's a breeze. For others, it's a struggle. And so we're going to talk about some of the challenges people face when they're setting boundaries. The first one is fear of rejection or conflict. Some people fear what others would think or do if they put boundaries in place. If you're someone that looks at resistance as a bad thing, if you struggle to keep those boundaries in place when you're met with pushback, I just want you to understand that it is a necessary part of the journey and it is something that you have to go through in order to set and maintain those boundaries. Anything that you have that is worthwhile or that's good, you're going to experience some type of resistance in your life. Think about, for some of us, waking up early, like myself. I experience resistance every day and I have to kick resistance butt every morning. Sometimes resistance wins, but most times I win after doing it consistently. How about going to the gym? Some people struggle with getting their workout on, and it's good for them. It's something that's good. However, they may not be accustomed to doing it often. It may just be daunting to even go to the gym. And so that's their resistance. But resistance is necessary. And once we can break through it, it becomes easier. If you're worried about what people would think or what they would do, if you put that boundary in place, just understand that you're going to have some type of pushback. And it's okay. You have to reframe the way that you look at resistance and just look at it more as an obstacle or a challenge you have to clear before you can get to the other side. You may not want to be rejected, or you may not want to get into conflict with people that you interact with, but it is a necessary part of your journey in order to grow and move forward. The second challenge is guilt and obligation. Some people fear that if they set a boundary in their life, that they'll cause someone else pain or inconvenience that person. I find that with people with low self-esteem, they even feel like they don't even deserve to set a boundary in their life. They give access to every and anybody, and they don't have that boundary in place in order to protect their time, their energy, or their peace of mind. They tend to overcommit. Like, you ever see those people, they're always stressed out because they have to do this for that person and that for that person. It's like they don't understand the word no. It's not even in their vocabulary. They are yes people. Everything is a yes, yes, yes. No matter what time of day, no matter what it includes, it's always a yes. And some of those people, they even lack the awareness that they're actually doing this. So they're feeling stressed, they're feeling burnt out, and they don't even know why that is because they're so accustomed to doing everything for everyone and giving access to themselves more than they should. If that's you, I want you to understand this. Hear me very well. You are the priority. You are the main character in your life. You need to exude main character energy when it comes to how you're spending your time and who you're spending your time with. Understand that prioritizing your well being is not selfish, but it's essential. And it's okay to help people, but not at the expense of burning yourself out, not at the expense of compromising on your boundaries, not at the expense of putting others before yourself, because you are the priority in your life. If you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. You should always pour from a full cup. So if you're feeling burnt out, if you're feeling just sometimes like not doing something, it's okay to say no. And I want you to practice this more in your life. Just say no to everything over the next, let's say, few hours. Just practice, do it for fun. Even if you don't mean it. If someone asks you to do something, just say no. Say no to everybody. Just so you can now start getting comfortable with that word and just so you can build the awareness. And you would be surprised. You may have the fear of causing people pain and an inconvenience, but one thing that I've learned in my life is if you don't step up to the plate for someone, they will find some other way to do it. So don't think that because you say no to someone, they won't figure it out. In fact, some of these people we need to say no to more often. I'm always reminded with my kids, sometimes they want me to move right away to do something. And I've been practicing this myself because sometimes I can find myself doing things for them that they could very well do for themselves. But as a mom, sometimes we just overextend ourselves, or we just try to help. We try to help them, but we're not helping them. We're actually hurting them because things that they can do on their own, they need to build that confidence as well. And so what I've learned is now when my boys ask me to do certain things, I really sit there, take a moment and think about it. And I say to myself, well, kid, could he do this himself? And if the answer is yes, I say, no, you do it yourself. You got this. And I encourage him, or I encourage them. Sometimes a little pain and inconvenience is good for a person. And that way they're not always depending on you to be their knight in shining armor. My husband always says, if you're looking for a helping hand, look at the end of your wrist. And I always find it so funny, but it's so true. And so even in my own life, I'm always thinking about, can I do this myself? So just practice saying no. It's okay if you don't want to do something. Protect your time, protect your energy, and protect your peace of mind by saying no. Another example I see in this is lending money. I think it's noble to lend money. I think if a friend is in need or a family member, it's okay to lend money. You might not get it back, so you always have to keep that in mind as well. I think it's great to help people. Where I think that we need to draw the line is if it puts us or our family at risk in any way. So, yes, you may want to help someone, you may want to lend them money, but you really have to think, if I lend this person this money and if I don't get it back, where does that leave me? And if that leaves you in a state of desperation, if that leaves you in a state of stress and anxiety, Again, you need to utilize the word no. The third challenge is cultural and social norms. We all grew up differently. We come from different households, different societies, and depending on how you grew up and where you grew up will determine your behaviors, your value system, your shared beliefs. And it's kind of like a code of conduct, like how we should carry ourselves, right? And when we do everything in alignment with that code of conduct, we're met with great approval. But when we step out of line, we're met with great disapproval. And I get it. I feel like there should be guidelines because if not, it would just be crazy out here in these streets. However, I think it's where it becomes a negative thing is when it interferes with someone setting boundaries for themselves. I'll give you an example. In some households, adults talk to kids any type of way. They could tell them to shut up, they could tell them whatever. And that child may be someone that feels bullied by those people in their household. And culture would say, "Oh, you're soft if you can't even take a joke," or "You're soft if you can't even be talked to that way." Like it prevents them from setting boundaries because they feel like this is something that I should accept because I live in this household and this is the way that we do things. Even though deep down inside, are screaming out to protect themselves because this is not an environment they want to live in. And it's unfortunate when a culture dictates how someone should be, even though their mental health and everything, they would be far better off if they were in a different environment or if people treated them differently. And, I get it. You have to have tough skin in some situations, and some people genuinely feel like they are doing that for their kids, right? I know it's even hard for me to say it, like talking to them that way because, oh, when they get out into society, what they have to deal with and all of that stuff. But I look at it differently. I feel like home should be that place where you could come to when the world beats up on you. When it's hard out there, your home should be somewhere you can come where it's a safe haven for you, where you genuinely feel like people have your back. So in those types of situations, these kids grow up as an adult and they don't know how to set the boundaries of mutual respect because they've been so disrespected. Because, I mean, and this is my opinion of how I feel, they've been so disrespected in their households for so long. Why should they not be disrespected out there? And every child is different because some kids will take that, and guess what? They would really have that tough skin and they would really go out there and nothing would bother them. So everyone is different, but you have to know the people in your household, especially as parents. You got to know your kids and how they are and how they interact, and just do your best to make it an environment that's going to allow them to grow as individuals and in a positive way as best as possible. So growing up, there would always be that adult, that aunt or that uncle or a friend of your parents, right? And they would see you as a kid and they would want to hug you and kiss you and show you love, as a kid. But some kids are not into that. Some kids are not touchy-feely. Like my oldest son, he is not that person, He's not going to if it's someone he doesn't know, he's not just genuinely going to go up to that person and want them to hug him or anything like that. I've always made sure that my kids knew that it's okay if you don't want to do that. It's okay to greet someone because I think it's respectful to say hello, however you greet them, but it doesn't necessarily need to be a physical interaction. If you don't want to be hugged or you don't want to be kissed, that's not something you have to do. The greeting is good enough. No means no. That's it, the end of it. Some cultures, it's looked at as a child being rude or disrespectful. And some cultures, it's okay. I'm not here to say what is right, what is wrong, or anything like that. But I'm saying that this is a challenge for some people in their lives because genuinely they want to be treated differently than how they're treated. And so it's something just to be mindful of. If you grew up in a household or if you grew up in a society where, you were looked at some type of way because you wanted to establish a boundary, that is definitely something you have to deal with. It's something you have to look within yourself and analyze yourself and figure out if this is a boundary you truly need to put in place. Because for some people, they need to even more than they want to. So just think about that, just some food for thought. Now, there's always the things that are unacceptable, right? I have those in my house too. For example, when it's adult time, meaning adult conversations after a certain time, if friends are over or whatever the case may be, kids need to go to their rooms. Kids need to be with kids while the adults are with adults. Also, bedtime. When it's bedtime and I say go to bed, that's it. You got to go to bed. So there are things that they don't have control over that I do have to put in place for them, their boundaries, because they don't understand all of those different aspects as yet. But eventually, they'll be able to choose their own bedtimes. They'll be able to hang out with the adults when they become adults and all of that stuff. But for now, that is a boundary that I put in place for them as their mom. Let's talk about how to recognize and establish your boundaries. The first one is self assessment and self reflection. So I find that most people don't process things, they don't process how they feel in certain situations. Sometimes the day just goes by and things happen and no one takes the time to really reflect on their day or how they felt. So it's good to always figure out how you feel in certain situations, even past experiences. Those are important as well. What feelings did you have about something? So, in order to establish your boundaries, you first have to know how you feel about certain things. You have to assess your own feelings. Next, you need to define your limits. You need to clearly articulate or clearly say what those limits are. So after you've reflected, you need to write it down and you need to visualize it. You need to know that, okay, this is definitely a boundary that I need to put in place or I want to put in place. Write the vision, make it plain. The third thing you need to do is express yourself assertively. Express yourself in I. What does that mean? You should use the word I when you're talking to that person. Because if you use any other pronoun, like if you try to do a story about someone that, is really talking about yourself, but you're trying to be sneaky about it and trying to get the point across, then you're not going to be sure if they actually got the point. You want them to know for sure that this is you talking to them about yourself and them, your interaction, and your relationship. So be direct and be specific about what your needs and your wants are. Express yourself in I. I want this. I don't like this. I prefer this, because they will know that you mean business. The fourth thing you need to do is practice consistency. You need to enforce those boundaries. You need to be consistent with it. And I know it's easier said than done because, like I said, you will experience resistance from possibly others and possibly from yourself. But it's something that you need to do repeatedly in order to establish them effectively. The last thing you want to do is seek support. Surround yourself with people that respect your boundaries because that means that they value you. Now, I'm not talking about the people that will put up with your BS, meaning they're going to just tell you what you want to hear, because real friends tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. But I'm talking about people that are not trying to take advantage of you. They get where you're coming from in terms of why you put that boundary there, and they have respect for you. And I'm sure you have respect for them as well. Another thing you can consider is seeking professional help. So you may need a therapist or a coach to help you establish and maintain those boundaries. I know my husband works with many people as a life coach in helping them do just that. And their life is so much better because of it, because they have the awareness, they have the structure, and they have the ability to maintain it because they have the tools necessary. If you find that you're someone that is just struggling with putting these boundaries in place, then absolutely and definitely get professional help. It's going to help you in a major way. Let's talk about what happens in the event that your boundaries are violated. Well, first, you have to understand that it's been violated, and that's why we did the self assessment, right? So you already understand what you expect. And if that line has been crossed, then you have to know, okay, what do I do next? Because the last thing you want to do is have a boundary violated, and you have absolutely no clue what to do because you didn't think about it that far. You have to know what the consequence for the action should be. Now, I believe in second chances. I believe that sometimes you may set a boundary and someone may cross over it. Now, you need to reiterate that boundary to them, like tell them again, listen, you crossed this boundary and I'm going to tell you again because maybe you forgot, but I'm going to give you another chance, but don't let it happen again. Another thing I like to do is to seek understanding. Why did they cross that boundary? Like, what was the reason? Because maybe it's something that they didn't even realize. Some people, I believe, they don't mean to, it's not intentional that they mean to do things. Now, if the boundary is super clear, then you could be like, okay, that was definitely intentional. But their lack of awareness or lack of consistency may be something that causes them to cross over that boundary as well. So after you seek understanding and you understand why that happened, then you need to evaluate the relationship. Like, does this relationship even serve you? And when I say serve you, relationships serve all of us in different ways. Is it a relationship that's good for you? Is it a relationship that's positive? Is it a relationship that's dragging you down, getting you into trouble all the time, burning you out, stressing you out? Is it one of those relationships? Because if you evaluate the relationship and this is not even somewhere you need to be, then you need to really think about if this relationship is worth pursuing. Another thing you do is seek support, right? And seek counsel from your real friends, your real friends, those friends that give you good advice, though, because some of us have some great friends, but they give horrible advice. And so, someone that is level headed, someone that you can talk to, and they'll do their best to see all aspects. So, talk to them, seek support. It could even be a professional. You may need to talk to a professional about it, depending on how intense the boundary crossing was or whatever the situation was. You know what I mean? Sometimes you really have to sit down with someone because it may mentally just screw you up. And so sit down with someone, figure out, evaluate that relationship and figure out is this something that's worth pursuing? Like I said earlier, set your consequences. If they cross that boundary a second time, what does that look like? Because the last thing you want to do is just be giving out chances. I feel like one or two is good, but if you're going to keep giving out chances every single time and they're violating the exact same boundary, then it's safe to say at this point that you may be the problem. You may need to deal with the inner workings of yourself first so that you could build up the confidence and the strength to be able to leave that situation or, leave that relationship. And the next thing is practice self care. I always look at self as something that's very sacred. How you speak to yourself, how you interact with yourself is equally important, or even more important, I would say, than how someone else interacts with you. So if someone is crossing that boundary and you need to go inward, I want you to be gentle with yourself. I want you to be kind to yourself. And I want you to talk to yourself as someone who is caring for themselves, someone who is working on their inner healing, someone that is dealing with someone that is so precious and so valuable. So that comes from within. No one can tell you what your worth is or what your value is. That's something you have to know within yourself, or you have to cultivate within yourself. Some of us, it takes more cultivating than others, depending on situations we've been through, our past, and all of those different things. But that is something that comes from self. And then obviously, I say from God. I believe in God, and that's my source. What God says about me. I love to read the Bible and all the words that were spoken about me, right? And that may not be your jam, and that's cool. I'm just telling you, find what that is for you because I know what it is for me. My self worth definitely comes from within and my source. And lastly, if you done all you can, if you done did all of this and is and those boundaries are continuing to be stepped on, crossed over, smeared out, then at this point, you need to know when to walk away. In fact, run. Run away because that is not someone that has your best interests at heart. That is not someone that cares about you and definitely does not love you in any way, shape, or form. Sometimes you need to run away from those relationships so that you can get to the place where you can have peace of mind, where you can have just your overall well being be intact and to be at equilibrium and just be in a space where you are just vibing. Okay, just be in a space where you're vibing with life and you're living life and you're vibrant. So just know when to run away as well. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Rich Auntie Podcast. I hope that you found our topic today, Mastering the Art of Healthy Boundaries, insightful and empowering. Remember, setting healthy boundaries is not about pushing people away. It's about creating a space for you to thrive and succeed. So as you go forward, think about your current boundaries, reflect on them, and make the necessary adjustments to protect your overall well being. Before I let you go today, check out the Lifestyle Beginners course, where you can learn to leverage infinite banking to build your wealth and take control of your finances. Plus, don't forget to subscribe to my email list so that you can be up to date with what's going on in the Rich Auntie Podcast community. Thank you for tuning in. Join us next time for more valuable insight into wealth building and living your best life. Until then, stay rich in mind, body, and spirit.
Thanks for listening to the Rich Auntie Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Follow us on social media for more tips and exclusive content. Until next time, keep shining, keep thriving, and remember, you deserve to live your richest life.